Every society needs a really clear, consistent set of rules for how justice is handled. Think of it like a blueprint for a massive building. Without one, you just get chaos. Well, today, we're going to look at the official blueprint for our criminal court system.
So let's start with a really simple but incredibly important question. When someone's accused of a crime, who actually gets to make the final call? Who has the authority to hear all the evidence, to judge, and ultimately to decide a person's fate?
And the answer, you might be surprised, isn't just a judge. It's way more specific and carefully designed than that. To really find the answer, we have to look at the legal document that lays out the entire structure, a blueprint designed specifically to ensure fairness and prevent any misuse of power.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. According to the foundational text, there are basically four main pillars, four classes of criminal courts that make up the basic structure of the justice system in every single state.
And here they are, straight from Section 6 of the source material. You've got the courts of session at the top, followed by two classes of judicial magistrates. Now, we're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty of their powers, but just know that the first class handles more serious stuff. But then, look at that last one, kind of in its own category. Executive magistrates. This is our basic framework, the skeleton of the system.
Right. Now we get to the really interesting part. Because the true genius of this system isn't just about a simple hierarchy. It's all about the very specific and very different roles assigned to these magistrates. It's not just a ladder of power. It's a system of specialized jobs.
But hang on, before we go any further, let's just make sure we're on the same page. What even is a magistrate? Well, simply put, it's an officer of the court who's responsible for administering the law. It sounds like a broad term, and that's because, as we're about to see, not all magistrates are created equal.
And that leads us to the most crucial question of all. Just because someone has the title magistrate, does that mean they can do everything? Can they hear trials, issue licenses, and order detentions? Well, the answer is a big, emphatic no.
This is the heart of it all. This is where we see that intentional separation of powers in action. On one side, you have the judicial magistrate. They're the decider. Their entire job, as laid out in Section 3 of the Code, is to weigh evidence and make decisions that could lead to actual punishment. Then, on the other side, you have the executive magistrate. They're the administrator. They handle things like granting licenses and other paperwork. The key takeaway here? One group judges, the other manages. It's on purpose.
Okay, so we've got this blueprint with its carefully separated roles, but how does this system actually work with all the different laws floating around out there? Is it a one-size-fits-all kind of deal? Let's take a look.
This little table really helps break down what Sections 4 and 5 are telling us. For the main criminal code, this blueprint we've been talking about is the absolute rule, no exceptions. But for other national laws, it's kind of the default setting. It applies unless that specific law has its own set of rules. And when it comes to special or local laws, this blueprint just steps back and doesn't interfere. So it's a really flexible but firm system.
So, after digging into all these rules and different roles, we finally get to the most important question of all. So what? Why go through all this trouble to design this system in this specific way? What's the point?
And the answer, when you boil it all down, is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. This structure is no accident. It's a very deliberate design choice. The entire point is to separate different kinds of power, to make sure no single person or office has too much control over the whole legal process.
This right here, this quote really captures the core principle from Section 3. The person who weighs the evidence and decides if someone is guilty should absolutely not be the same person who handles the administrative side of things. It creates a critical check and balance right inside the system itself.
And that leaves us with a final thought. This isn't just some abstract legal theory we've been talking about. This careful separation of judicial power from executive power is there for a very real, very important reason. So the question to think about is this. How does a system that prevents one person from being both the administrator and the judge ultimately protect your rights and your freedom? It's definitely something worth thinking about.